Hello and welcome, dear listeners, to the first trailer of the first bonus episode of The Return of the Repressed. We are going to dive into the history of hemp. I have made a paid subscribers only channel on Spotify for those who don't like Patreon. So the link to that, as well as the link to the Patreon then, will be in the description. I would really like it if some of you decided to support the show. I spend more than a full 40-hour work week producing this show. So, yes, it would be nice to get paid. I have worked for free a lot in my life on a lot of farms. So if you are as poor as, let's say, a Malaysian farmer from Kota Baru or a Chinese peasant in, I don't know, Shandong, Anhui, then, feel free to consider yourself exempted. And I will send you a personal MP3 file on mail if you contact me. But for the rest of you, please support the show. There is something I would like to touch upon. Namely that although it is true that individually, considering the many qualities of hemp, there are plenty of other candidates which could serve each of its purposes as substitutes, it is hard to find a plant that ticks as many of the boxes as cannabis. I mean, as we will see, it can, and has, for longer than anyone can remember, been used to put a roof over our heads and food on our table. Probably since the beginning of cultivation, and certainly long before the grain state. Now, using cannabis as a master signifier for a historical and parapolitical economic investigation can either be really obnoxious or truly entertaining. By that I mean that we need to be careful, since we find in this special field actual academic CIA infiltrators, who know very well just how damaging the use and fetishization of psychoactive substances can be to any radical movement. I'm not going to tip in the opposite direction and say that the only thing that made the 68 Woodstockers so much less revolutionary than the participants of the January storm of 67, when the Chinese seized Shanghai in the name of the Paris Commune, that the only thing that separated them was a newfound Western fascination with drugs fostered by Operation Chaos. Though I would say that it certainly had something to do with it. Anyways, I'll try to stay clear of such undercover Joe Rogan crowd authors of this, probably the most popular topic when it comes to cannabis, and focus, as I suggested, on the hemp strain. That doesn't mean that I will not try to squeeze in as many tidbits and movie skits as I can from that, nonetheless very entertaining, adjacent, somewhat half-baked popular culture. After all, had it not been for that exciting illegality, I, at the tender age of 14, would probably never have gotten in contact with the plant, or maybe even farming in general. Would never have seen how colloidal silver can feminize seeds, or just what is the right amount of amendments to produce either a lot of leaves, a lot of growth, or a lot of flowers. Now, I'm hoping this will be a recurring bonus series, and when we start reaching the modern period, we will of course also see, as hinted at in the intro, that the confusion between hemp and marijuana is absolutely central to the psyop of the American industrialists, as they successfully institutionalized an ethnobotanical dictatorship so global that it is perhaps only matched by the universality of the very plant it aims to eradicate. The consequences of which, in my opinion, is far more important than the mere violation of an adult right to get fucked up in whatever way one pleases. Not saying that is completely unimportant. However, I hope you will eventually agree, dear listener, that there is something bigger at play here, considering again the many boxes of usefulness that the non-psychoactive plant provides. In addition, me shitting on slogans like "Man made alcohol, God made marijuana, who do you trust?" It's not going to be much good either, is it? No matter how naive, egotistical, and counterproductive cannabis activism has appeared at times since its criminalization, me just distancing myself from that is equally pretentious, now that I have decided to speak upon the matter. I think some of you know already what I'm alluding to, which is that the war on hemp, as perhaps a more fitting name than the war on drugs, is not primarily motivated by the prohibition of what some believe to be a sacrament, or in the paraphrasing of some of the most confused, highest flying entities out there, a conscious expansion which a government of conformity might find terrifying. It is not the drug which is a problem. Historically, class society even seems to have invented that, at least in the case of the Europeans. It simply cannot be the case, since according to the DEA itself, it admits that 94 to 97% of all marijuana hemp plants that have been seized and destroyed since the 1960s could not have been smoked as marijuana. Sure, we could say that they of the repressive state apparatus are that stupid and cannot tell the difference. Or we could raise a point about how the laziest recreation is perhaps how the police often invent their own problems to make it appear as if they are needed. 2 points that in a somewhat modified form will return as this investigation gains maturity. But initially, I'm gonna go on a stretch here and say that they know very well what they are doing. And though the popular reaction in the yellow press was initially prohibitionist and evangelist, this is not a crusade of morals. But as always, we have to follow the circuits of capital. A statement which is a prioritizing of a particular economical contradiction. Not, I hope, a vulgar dismissal of the trauma suffered by countless cultures and peoples, which effectively, as a byproduct, have had their rituals and traditions criminalized by an alienating machine. Alright, time to get into the history of cannabis sativa L.
Hotheads, anything to get a kick, anything to get a blast, anything to get a kick, anything to get a blast, anything to get a kick, anything to get a blast, anything to calm his mind. They can get turned on with pot, they can get loaded, they can get stoned. Of the student body was smoking pot, pot. It fascinates and then assassinates and then it kills. A drug epidemic that's sweeping our nation. We need to legalize pot. Man.